Good morning.
Good morning.
So good to be here. Thank you for a little glimpse of blue sky. We were beginning to wonder if we'd ever see it again down in Santa Rosa. I felt like I needed to at least acknowledge that this week on Monday we lost Pope Francis. Even being a non-Christian myself, never have been a Catholic. And blessed that the day before on Easter, he gave his final Easter message to the world, which was a message that is deep in the Christian teaching of taking care of, feeding the poor, and taking care of the disenfranchised. This week, maybe the last couple weeks, a conversation has returned to our ministers' listserv that can get kind of heated at times. And the conversation is one of, are we a teaching that's about consciousness and praying? Or are we a teaching about social activism and saving the world? And interesting, this conversation has been going on since I've been in ministerial school. We used to talk about people who were about consciousness and people were about the soup kitchen. That was the way they termed it. And so what I want to talk about in this month of fertilizing our future, in today's talk about regenerativity, which is really talking about emerging anew. That's what we've been dealing with, emerging anew, not same old, or back to. And regenerating, which means seeding the soil for what's yet to be. That reminder that really in our basic teaching of oneness, one consciousness, one life, that our tendency in our human mind and our human brain by our very wiring is that we put everything in a this or a that, a good or a bad. We put everything in boxes, in either or. But really to dive deep into the teaching of one consciousness, there is no separation between our prayer work and what we do in the world. The invitation of all spiritual teachings is to start with and come home to and deepen in that experience of that wholeness and oneness. In Christianity, the teacher Jesus taught to look at where our judgments are and work with our own judgments and find that love and drop into that heaven within that's always here. In Buddhism, they teach a right mindfulness of paying attention to where you were attending to in our lives. Are our thoughts in alignment? Are our lives in alignment? And today here in this teaching, we are teaching what we have been teaching for ages, those age-old wisdom teachings from the beginning of time, which is really dropping into and remembering that we are made of and from and by that one source of life, call it what you will. That despite what we may see or experience, and particularly what we may think and judge in our minds, that there is only this one, and it is already and always emerging anew. Right now, it is emerging anew. That evolution doesn't come out of our direction. That evolution and the unfolding of life is happening always. And we're part of it. And so what we get to attend to is, where are we participating? Because like I said, it doesn't come and go. We often say in this teaching that the law or God is working to answer our prayers as I have spoken. But truly what the law is really doing, what life is really doing, is it's really unfolding and reflecting back what really is grounded and most held and most believed in our consciousness. I can speak all my true desires, but if I'm holding division and hatred and judgment in my heart, that's what life's going to unfold. Hence, the nature of the world right now. It really is a culmination of the human consciousness and our belief in othering. I was thinking as I was getting ready for this talk, the problem is not and has never been the other. The problem has always been the othering that our mind tells us is. That something, someone has to be wrong and to blame. So even though I won't deny there is a lot of work that we are doing in this world, there are things we want to participate and shift. My job is not to tell you what to do. Whether you go to a march or you sit in prayer, if you can spend your life in prayer, most certainly spend your life in prayer. People are called to find their own way. We come here to remember the source from whence we are living in our lives, and to remember that it's always here. And it's always guiding us and supporting us, sustaining us. As much as we have some say in our life, that what we're always working with and really shifting is not the outer conditions, but our inner consciousness, our thoughts. Ernest Holmes says that's all we ever do is shift inwardly. Life takes care of what shows up outwardly. And then to listen and allow our feet, our activity in life to be guided. And that doesn't divide up in activities. So it doesn't matter whether you're up in Fort Bragg marching, whether you're running an organization, whether you're teaching and parenting or planting in your garden or doing your dishes. Consciousness is always expressing and unfolding through us. And ours is to become awake and aware to what we have going on in our consciousness. I participate in, gladly, a non-dual group. A non-dual group, which means people who truly believe, and I think everybody in our group has felt, experience that there's only one. Sound familiar? Only one consciousness. And so we gather twice a month and sit, and it varies between intellectual conversation and debate, and sometimes people share what's challenging in their lives, but there's always this opening and this calling to simply ground in, to connect with, that we're never outside of that oneness. And nothing and no one can ever be outside of oneness. There's one man in this group who I really adore, who is known by his insistence that he doesn't want to watch the news. And why would he watch the news? Because it disturbs his peace. Now, if I experienced him as one of the great awakened masters, I've sat with teachers that I feel nothing but love from, I might go, okay, well, that's not what you're doing. But this is a man of the world. And so when I think about watching the news or not news, and surely we can watch the news too much. We can watch the news for reasons and intentions that aren't useful. Sometimes we watch it to see how much we can get stirred up and angry about. You can overdo news watching. But what I recognize in this man and in our human nature, because I can do this, you can do this, whether you want to look at that right now or not. But that tendency to not want to sit and feel our anger, our sadness, our fear, that living in life can stir up in us, whether it's news, a relationship, someone that annoys you across the aisle at the church. It doesn't matter. That stopping and looking what's here and what might be in the way of contributing to a world that might work for everyone. Gandhi, when questioned in his social activism, his deep spiritual practice, said, anyone that says that religion or spirituality has nothing to do with politics doesn't understand what spirituality really is. Because there is no spirituality apart from the mundane and the ordinary. There's only one life. There's only one intelligence happening all the time. And we're here just to remember to break those walls down, to see beyond our ideas of this and that. The things I want to do, the things I like to experience within and around me. Because if we're going to drop in and find the truth of who we are, we have to face the things that are in the way. Reverend Edward down in Santa Rosa, he's following the same themes and titles that we are, but he renames them. And so today he is speaking about pulling the weeds. And really, that's really the work that we do as metaphysicians, as religious scientists, is we look what we are attending to that isn't useful for whatever it is we want to experience in our lives. If I'm wanting to feel more good, best to not sit around and go, woe is me. If we want to participate in a world that's more user-friendly, just user-friendly, or a world that works for everyone, we have to look at our disbelief, our judgment, our separation within. And then allow that deeper knowing, that deeper sense of wholeness to guide us. I spoke a couple of months ago, I think, on that Buddhist story of the naturalness of our activity, being as natural as a hand would go to a foot to pull a thorn out. There is that in us that naturally urges us to do that which is ours to do. We're looking for something, for that which is bigger than our human idea. This verse from the Tao Te Ching that I just read from, written by Ram Dass. Truth waits for eyes unclouded by longing. Often we don't fully hear the truth because of our minds clinging. We hear only projections of our own desires. So what we make decisions that end up in not being the deepest harmony with the way of things. We want to look at where we're not making decisions for the wholeness of life because of our clinging or our resistance in our own human minds. I loved listening to Marcus' song this morning, Clear My Eyes, My Ears. Because we're not just seeing nice. We're not trying to see a fairy tale. But first, I have to feel and sense a greater truth than what is. That in the midst of this human experience that we're experiencing right now, that there is something that's calling us to know and shift in order to really live in harmony with nature, because we are a part of nature. And up until now, we have lived as if we're not. We have lived as if human beings are the pinnacle of creation, and somehow we're separate from life. We're separate from each other. And these teachings, all of them, from whatever faith, religion people come from, are all pointing us to that that's right here. I just read the book from Caberly Morgan, who is a Zen monk who started studying metaphysical teaching. And she works, so she's not just having this new idea. She works in developing a program and works with teenagers in public school systems to shift them from their own human struggles to a sense of belonging, to a sense of connection and community. She says, to create it, we must dream it. To dream it, we must know it. You cannot long for something you have never tasted. Our spiritual practice is in dropping in and tasting that oneness and that wholeness, tasting that truer nature of who and what we are. Because we are so outward oriented and we've been trained so much to believe our thoughts and to believe what our old stories tell us. We are told that they're good and bad people. And I tell you, as a minister standing here that really does her work, I see good and bad happening in the world. We're not denying the nature of the world. We are being called to listen to something beyond what we have known. That's evolution. To drop off those old tales that no longer serve us. To drop off those weeds and limited thinking that don't serve life as a wholeness. Eckhart Tolle says, be the still watching of your thoughts and behavior. You are the awareness beneath the thinker. You are the stillness beneath the mental noise. You are the love and the joy beneath pain. We're being asked not to go beyond our humanness, not to become all mystical and otherworldly. We're being called to truly be humane, starting with our own recognition of our belonging, in seeing and clearing our eyes and our ears to see and hear that truth for and about all the world. Now, that doesn't mean we don't have to do stuff that people aren't creating harm. I used to work with severely emotionally disturbed kids, and I love these kids, and they were innocent and pure, but we would restrain them when they were trying to do hurtful behaviors to hurt themselves or each other. There are things to do in the world, always. So it really isn't a question of, do I actively participate in the world or do I just pray? Prayer is our activity. Our activity is our prayer. To really look deeply in, where am I playing this part in life? What is mine to know and do? And not to do that as a one-time activity, a one-time vision, but to live from that prayerful looking inward, that forever looking outward anew. What's beyond what I'm seeing, so that I'm not resisting or I'm not grabbing, I'm not judging and assessing. Because that's what we're seeing in manifestation right now. That's the broken element, is that othering. And that's a big transformation. Eileen talked about resurrection. That's the dying to the old and being born anew. Truly. I talked to my brother. I'm about to go up with my friend and to see him in Bozeman, and he is a Christian, fundamentalist Christian. And when I called him, I was a little hesitant because I wasn't hearing from him. And I asked him if this was okay that we were coming to see him. And he knows my friend Katie, and he hesitated. And he says, well, I need you to know I'm not who I used to be. I'm a new man in Christ. And it's not a religion. I'm not who I used to be. And I sort of got nervous, like, Oh, I think my brother's in a cult. And I said, I'm not really in a religion either. I am in a practice of love. And I said a couple more things to him, and then he just softened and became my brother, who's very gentle and very naturally loving. Now, I've known my brother. I've been close to him. We were the two that were close all along. He has said to me many times, he calls me when he's in distress. He says, "You're the only one in the family that sees me." And he recognizes the pain that we grew up in as a family. And he struggles with his own sense of self. And I recognize that he's had experiences that have been sort of pushed on him actually by a community when he was living in Nebraska, but it's opened a place where he feels safe as a Christian. But the distinction is not putting a religion on as a protection, but dropping deeper into what's really true. And when I talked about love, my brother just naturally dropped into that love. And when I got off the phone, I thought, where do we do that? Because here we are as religious scientists that talk about love all the time. Where do we hold that as a banter? Have you ever found yourself arguing in your head or with another person or thinking about who's outside of your oneness? Because that's our work. If we're going to become that new person in the Christed awareness, in the presence of oneness, we need to be aware of what's in the way and be willing to shift. That's the transformation. That's the rebirth of a teaching. That's the evolution that we're talking about, that the world is beckoning us to if we're going to stay here as human beings and live on this planet. Can I drop into this? At the end of Ernest Holmes' life, he gave his last public address at Asilomar. He went there every year, and the community went there. And he spoke the beautiful words of the Sermon by the Sea. And in a poetic style, repeating the line again and again, find me one person. What he spoke of is finding that person and being that person who walked hand in hand in the awareness of the divine, in the awareness of the love, in the light that we are already, to find that within ourselves, because he wasn't just speaking poetically as a teaching. He was talking about you. He was talking about me. To be that person, that's our spiritual prayer, and that's our spiritual activism. Can I live from that humane love in my life so that it can guide me in that which is mine to do or not? I invite you to join with me within to practice, to know, to deepen into that experience of that is fully abiding here. That presence of life, that one ground of being, call it what you will. It is always fully present. The very source of all life, nothing and no one is ever left out of this one life, this one universe. Every particle, every person animated by that one, made of and from and by that one. And that one presence, that one power, that one intelligence guiding and unfolding, emerging anew, moment by moment, breath by breath, all together, not just individually individuated, but together right now. Life shifting. And so I stop to recognize, to feel that presence. It is the life of my life. no separation, no me in life, me, the divine, just one present, be breathing this breath, speaking this word, showing up uniquely here as it shows up uniquely as each and everyone here, each and everyone hearing this word, each and everyone. Beyond what I can see, beyond what I can know, there is that is unfolding, emerging, evolving anew. And so I take this time to open and align, to surrender into that presence of love, that presence of wholeness right here. Knowing that is here holding each and every one, guiding and directing as it casts the moonbeams across the waves and holds this universe within its grasp. It holds and informs and guides and directs each particle, each person. It calls us home right now into that greater abiding experience, that knowing that we are held, supported, sustained by that breathes every breath, one intelligence, one consciousness right here. And so I rest in this knowing. So good to come home in conscious awareness of this truth. Knowing that it is all known, it is all done, but this one intelligence, this one source itself. I simply let go right now. Let go. In gratitude, in deep assuredness. And I let this be. And so it is. So it is. Amen.